Welcome back to our channel, where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. We are excited to share the following news. King Charles officially breaks silence over Harry and Meghan's lying about royal reconciliation. King Charles is allegedly warning Prince Harry and Meghan about the lying they have been doing about the royal family, wanting to reconcile with them and wanting them to return to the United Kingdom for the royal Christmas. According to a source who provides information from inside the royal family, according to reports, King Charles has said that it would never take place. King Charles exposes Sussex reconciliation as a laughable lie, and this is the final ultimatum of the crown and the king. A king and his son who was living in exile had broken the delicate and unspoken ceasefire that they had been living under. Buckingham Palace has approved a strike against Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, branding their carefully produced story of reconciliation not only as fake but also as laughable. This is not a retraction, rather, it is a declaration of war. By doing so, Buckingham Palace has shown a planned and harsh finality. It is the same institution that the Sussexes wanted to depict as reaching out to the community that has shattered the carefully created facade of a family that is gradually healing its wounds. The king, who is struggling with a serious sickness and the burden of a broken crown, has come to the conclusion that being silent is no longer a strategy, but rather a gesture of surrender. It is not only a family drama that unfolds after that. It is also a perilous war for the soul and life of the British monarchy itself, which forces a question that reverberates across the corridors of power. What happens when a father's patience finally runs out, and a king seeks to regain control in the world of royal counteroffensives? The Anatomy, a continuous drumbeat of tales which seemed to originate from the sun-drenched hills of Montecito, portrayed a picture of relations that were beginning to warm up over the course of many months. There was mention of phone calls of talks that were deeply felt, and of a kid who had been absent for a long time being gradually brought back into the fold. The tale was not only compelling and moving, but it was also very deceptive. The public was encouraged to think that two particular actions taken by the palace were evidence of this reunion between the two organizations. At first, there was the face-to-face meeting that took place between the king and Prince Harry at Clarence House. It was a quick and uncomfortable encounter, and it is widely seen to have been more of a summons than a reunion. Second, and in a more subtle manner, the strategy of strategically placing a wedding portrait of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at an annual Christmas gathering that is held by Queen Camilla. It is a momentous act, a visual telegraph that is intended for consumption all over the world, that such an image be included in the language of royal statecraft, which is a coded language that is quiet. This, however, was an intentional attempt to misunderstand the message. Palace insiders have now taken the initiative to aggressively reinterpret these incidents with the intention of portraying them not as olive branches, but rather as the final remnants of a monarch, diminishing tolerance. It was a precision-guided missile that was directed straight at the credibility of the Sussexes, and it was sent to the newspaper known as the Times of London, which has been regarded for a long time to be a semi-official voice of the British establishment. It is not a coincidence that sources who are regarded as being close to King Charles have the term laughable in their vocabulary. It is a word of complete and total rejection, and its purpose is to inflict maximum harm by depicting the Sussexes not as equals in a discussion, but rather as fantasists selling a fantasy, in spite of the fact that the king may have agreed to a meeting out of a residual feeling of fatherly responsibility, and the queen may have included a picture in order to avoid allegations of cruelty. Any indication of a true and continuous discourse is a fake. The message was plain. It is a tectonic change in palace strategy that this public condemnation has occurred. For years under the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, the institution weathered the Sussexes' escalating attacks with a stoic, and at times frustrating silence, adhering to the time-honored mantra of never complain, never explain. King Charles, in his early reign, appeared to be following the same playbook, absorbing the blows from his son's memoir, Spare, and the couple's explosive Netflix documentary. However, it seems that the diagnosis of cancer that he received was a defining moment. When confronted with his own death, Ed King has little time for diplomatic pleasantries or half measures. Historiographers of the royal family believe that this new aggressive stance is the result of a king who is aware that the time he has to ensure his legacy is limited. He is no longer just a father who is facing the agonizing rebellion of a cherished son. He is the guardian of an institution that has been there for 1,000 years. And he has come to the conclusion that the ongoing campaign of distortion and misinformation from California constitutes an existential danger to the stability of the institution. According to the insiders, the king has the impression that his generosity has been weaponized and that his efforts to retain a fundamental familial link have been turned into a public relations tale that supports exclusively the Sussex brand. At this point, it seems that the conflict is no longer only about family. Rather, it is about the power of the crown to establish its own reality. At the crosshairs, there is a monarchy. The choice of the king to participate in the conflict is not taking place in a vacuum. At a time when the House of Windsor is in a position of extreme vulnerability, this comes together. Amidst a sea of scandal and internal struggle, the monarchy that Charles presides over has had its foundations shattered. As the long and dark shadow of the Prince Andrew incident continues to destroy the confidence of the crown, it is a slow-motion calamity that continues to be stubbornly unsolved. This gives a message of impunity to the public which infuriates them, and it weakens the authority of the king. The disgraced Duke of York attending family celebrations at royal chapels makes the people angry. This reluctance to effectively cauterize the wound that Andrew sustained has fostered an impression of weakness, a feeling that the king is either incapable or unwilling to enforce the required discipline on his own family. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex stepped into this role of leadership. It has done more than just poison the internal dynamics of the family. It has pulled the monarchy into the exact arena it has always wanted to avoid, the never-ending venomous churn of the cultural wars. Their tale has done more than just poison the family's internal dynamics. As a loving, progressive, and contemporary couple, Harry and Meghan have skillfully presented their departure as a war of ideology, pitting themselves against a cold, racist, and outdated institution. Regardless of how contentious it may be, this narrative has found fertile root, notably in the United States, which has resulted in the establishment of a parallel royal court that acts according to its own laws and is accountable to no one except its own financial and ideological interests. This setting is what gives the opinion of persons such as Tom Sykes of the Royalist Substack such a powerful impact. A population that is sick of the disarray finds the argument that the king's recovery from sickness must be followed up by determined measures to restore discipline to be quite compelling. The monarchy, according to the opinions of several experts, is incapable of functioning as a democracy among conflicting narratives. One single undivided source of authority, known as the sovereign, is the origin of its power and mystery. When that power is challenged not by an adversary from the outside, but by the king's own son, the whole structure starts to shake. There is a risk associated with the notion that the organization has drifted drastically off the tracks. It gives rise to curiosity, not just about Charles's health, but also about the identity of the person who is in control. Therefore, the recent revelation about the king's health was more than just a personal update. It was a deliberate move to indicate his return to active leadership, serving as a reassertion of authority with the intention of putting an end to the chapter of conjecture and instability. It is no longer acceptable to take partial measures, as Sykes pointed out. Therefore, it is now necessary for the king to show that he is not only the head of state, but also the uncontested head of the family, and that he is able to maintain order inside his own household. An analysis of the great divide from a psychological perspective. The key players in this fight inhabit significantly different psychological landscapes, and it is necessary to have an awareness of these landscapes in order to comprehend this struggle. The only purpose of King Charles Roman III's upbringing was to fulfill his familial obligations. He has spent his whole life learning how to conceal his own emotions as well as the sentiments of others in order to ensure that the institution will continue to exist. The crown is not a location where he is able to freely express himself. Rather, it is a sacred trust that he has inherited. He may not freely express himself there. However, when seen through the lens of his constitutional duties, it is clear that his agony over Harry is very genuine. There is little doubt about this. According to him, Harry's public admissions are not just a personal betrayal, but they are also an attack on the very concept of monarchy. The monarchy is an institution that relies on secrecy and a private life that is well guarded in order to maintain its legitimacy. The recent actions that he has taken create the appearance that he has reached a breaking point where the desire of a parent to protect his child has been replaced by the responsibility of the king to protect the crown. On the other side, Prince Harry has been throughout his whole life functioning from a place of profound emotional trauma. Both the defining tragedy of his life, the death of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, and his perception that she was chased to her grave by the press with the complicity of the royal institution have contributed to the creation of his worldview. His mother was the Princess of Wales. For the sake of rescuing his own family from the same fate, he perceives himself to be involved in a struggle that spans many generations. As a result of this deeply rooted narrative of oppression, he perceives enemies in situations where others see routine, and he perceives plots in situations where others perceive tradition. The actions that he engages in, which include the interviews, the book, and the films, are not acts of betrayal, when seen within the framework of this psychological paradigm. Rather, they are acts of self-preservation and the disclosure of the truth. He has a genuine conviction that he is putting an end to a historical injustice and liberating himself and his family from tyranny all at the same time. One interpretation of this is that it is an attack against the institution, while another interpretation is that it is a defense of the king's wife and children. It is impossible to bridge the gap that this generates. When it comes to the matter at hand, Meghan Markle brings a third perspective that is very American to the table. Having spent time in the fast-paced and cutthroat world of Hollywood, she has developed a worldview that focuses on the management of brands, the control of narratives, and the art of strategic communication. Her royal status is not something that she considers to be an obligation that must be fulfilled. Rather, she sees it as a platform that can be used to exercise influence on a global scale. In the event that the institution revealed that it was resistant to her strategies and goals, it was unavoidable that the conflict would emerge. There are a lot of examples that suggest that the cultivation of media friends and the precise control of her public image seem to be her major priorities. A good illustration of this is the fact that she allegedly attempted to get in contact with her own handicapped father, at the same time that she was allegedly trying to get in touch with a British television personality called Alison Hammond. The cultural clash with the Windsor is a result of the fact that the Windsors put a larger premium on the role of celebrity mechanics than they do on the responsibilities of traditional monarchy, which are more mundane and less glamorous. This is the source of the problem. Queen Camilla is finally here after what seems like an eternity. She was formerly the most extreme royal outsider, but now she has become the stoic symbol of the institution's principles of caution and perseverance. She used to be the most extreme royal outsider once. Her personal history has provided her with a unique perspective on the destructive power of public opinion, which she has developed as a consequence of her experiences. Camilla, who has dedicated a substantial amount of her public work to organizations that support victims of abuse, would be greatly upset by the seeming harshness of Harry and Meghan's treatment of their own fathers, according to Angela Levin, a royal biographer. This is because Camilla has been a prominent advocate for victims of abuse. Despite the fact that she does not directly command the decisions that the king takes, her opinion is of the utmost importance. She serves as a living example of the fact that weathering the storm often requires a great lot of patience, but also a clear sense of when it is appropriate to remain steadfast. She embodies the institutional memory of survival and is the personification of that memory. The unwavering and unyielding support that she has provided is likely a significant contributor to the newfound resolve that the king has. There was a struggle over the right to tell the story. In the court of public opinion, which is where the debate is being waged the most actively, there is a fight taking place between media tactics that are in contradiction with one another. By demonstrating their mastery of the current media world, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have shown their expertise through the use of platforms such as Oprah Winfrey and Netflix. They have bypassed traditional routes in order to interact directly with an audience that is located all over the globe. The strategy that they use is to give the impression that they are powerful and influential on a global scale, while yet preserving a persistent feeling of victimhood for themselves. They provide information about private meetings. They brief journalists who are linked with them, and they use their Archewell Foundation as a vehicle for announcements that blur the barrier between humanitarian action and the creation of their own brand. All of these things include the disclosure of information about private meetings. An excellent illustration of this playbook was the fact that they claimed to have made amends with the king. They made this step with the intention of protecting their royal relationship, which is the ultimate source of their economic value, and softening their image. In spite of the fact that it has a long history of being sluggish and reactive, the palace is only now starting to understand how to fight on this new terrain. A current and asymmetrical approach was presented to the Times in the form of a briefing presentation. Because of this, it was possible for the king's actual feelings to be conveyed without the necessity for an official pronouncement that was made public and may be seen as being disrespectful. It was a way of saying, "We will not allow you to control this narrative any longer." This is a consequence of the fact that this is a game in which a lot is riding on the result. A large number of people from all around the globe are looking at each and every move and counter-move with great interest. Due to the fact that a presenter had incorrectly stated that Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, had been incarcerated, GB News had to deliver a humiliating apology to her on air as a harsh reminder of the legal power that the Sussexes wield. This apology served as a necessary reminder, a success for Meghan, but it also called attention to their aggressive and litigious tactics, which stand in direct contrast to the conventional royal style of doing things. This method further alienates them from the British elite, but it also promotes their image as tough characters who will not be taken lightly. The fact that they are willing to use the courts and the threat of legal action to silence opponents and control their narrative is a strategy that they have adopted. It is impossible to overstate the magnitude of the implications that this clash between narratives has. If the general public comes to believe that there are two contradictory sources of royal truth, both of which are equally real, then the monarchy's fundamental claim to be the exclusive and authoritative voice of the nation will be severely in jeopardy. Both of these sources originate from different locations. One originates from Buckingham Palace, while the other comes from Montecito. The counteroffensive against the king is such a crucial strategy for this very reason. It is not merely that he is correcting a falsehood. Rather, he is attempting to reinstate the palace as the exclusive authority that establishes the truth about royal issues inside the realm of royal affairs. It is also known as the Two Paths, and it is a story about two princesses. When it comes to revealing the fundamental division that exists within the royal family, there is hardly anything that is more glaringly obvious than the quiet, unpublicized actions that another royal has done. Lady Louise Windsor, who is the daughter of the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, was recently the subject of pictures that were taken. There were a lot of people aboard the commuter train in the United Kingdom when the images were shot. Because there were no seats available, the 19th in line to the Queen, who was the granddaughter of the late Queen Elizabeth Roman II, sat on the floor for the whole of the journey, working on a laptop that had a broken screen. She was the only person in the line to succeed to the throne. The photograph was a powerful metaphor for the characteristics that the monarchy is exerting a great deal of effort to communicate to the rest of the world. These characteristics include humility, resilience, and a connection to the lives of common people. It is possible that the House of Windsor may undergo a variety of various futures, and Lady Louise is one of those possibilities. In spite of the fact that she was brought up without the grandiose titles and expectations that come with being a direct heir, her grandparents, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, set an example of the ideals that she embodies. She was fairly close to both of them. The path that leads to this is one of quiet responsibility, public service without fanfare, and a loyalty to the institution, rather than to one's own personal brand. This is the path that leads to this particular destination. She, along with her parents, embodies the core of working royals who are trustworthy, reliable, and increasingly important to the monarchy. Their roles are becoming more important on a daily level. They are the ones who ensure that the monarchy continues to work properly. If we compare them to the Sussex model, we can see that they are completely different. They are not interested in being in the public spotlight. They do not intentionally seek out controversy, and they do not regard their royal status to be a commodity that may be for sale for the purpose of making a profit. At the same time that it presents the king with his greatest challenge, it also presents him with his greatest hope for the future. Harry and Meghan are facing a number of obstacles, one of which is the issue of managing the ramifications that will arise from the celebrity-driven and grievance-fueled type of monarchy that they are promoting to the rest of the world. However, there is a chance that their version, which is louder, more dramatic, and more adapted to the rhythms of social media and reality television, may permanently contaminate the image of the British crown, which is more subdued and conventional. The ultimate expression of this choice would be the revocation of their titles, which is a measure that is purportedly being contemplated by the king, according to reports. It would be a termination of the link between their economic operations and the organization that they have been so vocally critical of. This would be a clear and conclusive rupture. In spite of the fact that it would be an act that would be fraught with peril and may make them seem to be martyrs, it is possible that this is the only way for the king to establish a distinct line in the sand. Alternatively, the hope is in the model that Lady Louise established. This is where the hope is located. It was her simple act of sitting on the floor of a train that struck a deeper chord with the people of the United Kingdom than any of the media efforts that the Sussexes had conducted, which had cost several millions of dollars. There is a great desire for the ideals of responsibility, service, and humility that have provided the monarchy with its power over the course of many centuries. And this provides the sense that there is still a strong desire for these principles. The ultimate obligation of the king is to steer his family and his realm through this stormy period, and to ensure that the road of duty and not the path of fame is the one that will define the direction of his reign in the years to come. This is the king's ultimate responsibility. Not only is the disagreement with Montecito a disagreement between members of the same family, but it is also a disagreement over the fundamental notion of what it means to be a royal in the 21st century. As an additional point of interest, the king has at long last arrived at the realization that he cannot afford to lose this battle. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and say goodbye for now.